So it's not totally mute.
No, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Because Zoom didn't seem like it was understanding me at all. Cool. Hey, Peter's here too. Hey, Peter.
Hey there. Yeah, I think I did I upgrade Zoom properly? Did I actually get a new version? Somehow managed to stick. Yeah, no,
What's it?
it's an adventure.
You sound very far away.
Oh, damn it. Yeah, hold on. It always like to decide that the microphone on the camera is the one it wants to go to once in a while.
Yeah, that happens to me sometimes too. Awesome. We all made it. Perfect. All right. Let's see, considering we're already at like 10 after, we can just go ahead and jump in. This will probably, looks like we're recording. This will probably be just for the benefit of anybody who's watching after the fact, or if we get any more people jumping in. But we had talked about maybe going over some of the work that's being done on Item AWS, and maybe Tyler, you would have some specific things to show today.
Oh yes.
Perfect.
I'm gonna just dive right in with that.
Yeah, let's do that. Unless you want to give it a little bit of a setup.
Yeah. So we've been working on Item AWS, which is we're not moving code from Salt Cloud into Item AWS. This is a complete rewrite of the Bodo 3 infrastructure in Salt, or a complete rewrite on top of Item. And so it gives us a lot more power, a lot more scalability, a lot different features. And over the past week, I've written out some instructions so that anyone should be able to get started with Item AWS right away. One of the things that we're excited about here is there's very low barrier to entry because you don't need actual AWS credentials to run this. You can do it all with LocalStack, which is just a tool that kind of mocks the returns of an entire AWS API. Yeah, you can test this locally and you don't even need AWS credentials to be able to get started doing all of this. So if you go on to let me share my screen right here. pypi.org, Item AWS. So on PyPy, if you look up Item AWS, then these are the instructions. You can follow these line by line, and you'll end up with everything you need to test and start using Item AWS. So to go over briefly over some of what you'll do. First is pip install Item AWS full, and you need to put it in a string like that with the full because otherwise it won't give you local stack. It'll just give you the AIO Bodo stuff. So that yeah, it'll just give you the bare minimum. So if you're going to test everything, then you want to install full. Then next you'll want to clone the repo, and you want to pip install Item AWS from PyPy just so that you can get all the requirements that way, because it's not as easy to get all the requirements from the requirements.txt just because of the extra requirements for local stack are set up differently than a normal requirements file. After that, just like with any Item cloud, you have to set up your credentials in a local encrypted Fernet file. And so here's just some instructions for how to set up that file. The bare minimum that you need is just a provider that looks like this. You're specifying what your backend is for creating this profile is, which is AWS Bodo. You're naming the profile. And if we're just using local stack, you just need an endpoint URL, and everything else here can be bogus. You don't need real AWS credentials. You can also use Google Auth, AWS Google Auth to authenticate if you want to use real AWS under the hood. And Then there's just some details on how to use those profiles. Like right here, we named a profile my staging env. And if you want to use that in a state, then this is an example of how to use a different profile or a specific profile in a state, or how to specify a specific profile in the command line. Because with item, you can run execution modules from the command line directly and specify a profile by name on the command line. And this is just telling you how to encrypt that file with the account command, and how to put that encryption key and file in a place where item knows where to find it. And then after that, you're ready to go. Once you've gotten that far, you've pip installed item AWS, you've cloned the repo, you've set up your account credentials with that bare minimum of having an endpoint URL and a bunch of bogus credentials just to make local stack happy. Then all you need to do is start the local stack server, which this command has already been run if you pip installed item AWS full. So you just run local stack infra start, which will download a Docker container and start it running. And then after that, you just need to run the tests. Just run PyTest on the test folder and everything will work just like that. And here I have my tests running.
So for the folks that want to test this out in a random AWS account that they might have, which states at this point are at least somewhat usable? How far have we gotten, right? Because there's lots of services out there. Which ones are currently covered?
The only one that's covered right now is EC2 VPCs.
Okay.
That's the only one that I've tested in there. I know Peter's put some other stuff in there. This is the only one that I've written a test for in the test suite. But there is some work that's going into some of the other folders over here. My next one is, I have my list. I'm going to need I'm going to do DynamoDB, Lambda, S3, API Gateway, EC2, and IAM in that order. Plus testing everything that we have already in there.
Nice, having that.
That was very rushed, and it took there's a lot of prior knowledge that I'm skipping, but.
No, I think that's fair. You know, if anybody has any questions, certainly chime in. Or if you might have missed some of it, I know we're having some people join in late here. If you have any questions and need reiteration, we can certainly do that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, the long and short of it being that, you know, item AWS is starting to poke its head out of the ground as, you know, the beginnings of a framework. There are a few modules that are out there that you can test right now. You also have some documentation from Tyler on how to test using local stack, so you don't even need an AWS account. But if you do want to actually stand up infrastructure that, you know, you can see and touch and interact with, you know, that should certainly work. And we welcome any and all questions, comments, or, you know, otherwise things that we can use in order to drive this project in the right direction.
And so, yeah, the next thing is I have this done for VPCs, and this code basically just needs to be copy pasted and used for the rest of the resources inside of AWS. Is this format of doing hub.aws.client.request, pass a context, tell which client we're getting from Bodo, and which function we're calling on that client. That's all this, that's the meat of what's happening in everywhere.
Right, though I will say that each API can come with its own particular sharp edges that you just have to be familiar with as you write it. The good news is local stack should cover most of those, so you should be getting the appropriate responses back and be able to fix it without having to go to real EC2.
Exactly, because and that's what part of the reason why I'm just super excited about this is because it's way easy to contribute. For Salt Cloud, it's it's difficult to get all the tests running and set up properly. And there's very low barrier to entry here. If you want to understand what's going on in the hood behind this command and all the contracts, that's something we've talked about in Item Cloud, and I talk about it on the stream when we have our Item Cloud meetups specifically about this. That's something we go more into detail. And I'm happy to sit with anyone and go more into detail if they want to understand what's going on and be able to debug this further. But I think here we just wanted a high level what's going on and what needs to be done.
Yeah, definitely. So, from this perspective, right, Tyler, like you said, has some voodoo magic behind the scenes that, is doing some of the heavy lifting here through contracts and otherwise. But, the main three here, as far as you're looking at execution modules, the main three here, listing a thing, creating a thing, and deleting a thing. You should be able to copy paste this, and then the create might take different parameters, so you'd have to tweak those for whatever object you're trying to create.
Right, and we're
but
naming
apart from that,
specifically the required parameters, and then everything optional is just in quargs. That makes it simple for us.
Yeah, simple to write, and potentially obfuscates some things that would be nice to see. But we might be able to cover those in documentation. In Item Azure, that's kind of the tactic that I've taken, is that I'll accept a bunch of things on quargs, but if I deem them to be important enough to mention, I'll just create a doc string a la all of the SALT modules, right? They have the restructured text doc strings that get formulated into documentation. If we document important things in there as well, we can build the docs and be able to have module references like we do in SALT.
Mm-hmm.
What's your position on default arguments for things that are important but could be omitted? Like if you have first off, with the question I have is typing. It's not shown here, but most of the code that you've written here have type hints, right? And so here it would be useful to discuss what the convention should be. For instance, if we have something, I'm sorry, I'm lying. There's the strings, but I'm saying not everything has the return types defined.
But there could be another argument here, argument foo, and it's an integer, and it equals none if it's not required.
Right,
and then list things explicitly. It's just for the most part they'll be caught in quargs, but yeah, for sure, if there's one that takes a specific type, do list it out.
Right. No, I'm thinking more about I'm somewhere between Rust and Python in the way I'm thinking sometimes. So things like foo int equals none makes me feel a little itchy, but that's yeah, just doing that and then it would be super nice to have something that could clear up what the arguments were if you had it, but that's probably ad hoc at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying that in the same sense as some of the earlier camelized stuff we did, where most of these arguments are going to get turned into a dictionary anyway that gets passed into that underlying function, right? And so it could be, you can do certain checks in there and certain automation of eliminating things that aren't needed, because again, sometimes the AWS API doesn't like it when you specify foo equals none or nil or whatever. It sits there and it goes, no, that's invalid, but you can just not send it and it's fine. So those sorts of corner cases can get a little gnarly if you try to expect consistency.
There. It'll happen now. I made a note to do that in the right contract.
Right.
But yeah, I'll make sure to do that.
There we go.
Test for it, so we're covered. Thank you, Peter.
So, hi, sorry for joining late. Just scheduling conflicts with the family and everything. Tyler, I've been enjoying your live stream. I've been trying to pick up everything I can about POP. Just trying to get my head around it. One of the things I'm wondering is for somebody who wants to use who wants to use POP, like what we're talking about with Azure and with AWS, is within Salt. Is there connective tissue for that at this point?
No, and I don't think that there will be. We tried to have a SEP to get a bridge between POP and item and salt together, but I think it was decided that they're going to remain separate tools.
Like for the foreseeable future?
Yes, for the foreseeable future.
Okay.
So it is worth saying at least that from the Salt Cloud perspective, Salt Cloud really isn't at all a part of Salt except it installs in Etsy Salt.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's very different. A very different beast. But
Right. I say that just because when we're looking at what the project is here, it doesn't hurt it to be a little bit separate from Salt. But yeah.
Yeah, I think the main thing that is the killer app, right, is the tie-in to the event bus in order to like bootstrap and get events kicked out and stuff like that, right? Like there's a lot of people that have written reactors based upon cloud create events and things like that coming across the event bus. So eventually getting those ties into Salt would be cool if we could make it happen in some way. I just don't know the best way to go about that when people are trying to shoot down the active integration of this into Salt, even though it's not required, right? Like, Tyler, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the SEP was basically like hey, we're providing a mechanism to tie in, but it's not going to like necessarily have to be there. We're just like,
Right.
hey, we're opening the door. And even that was like, nah, screw you guys.
that surprises me.
Unfortunately.
Salt is placed so friendly with so many other things. You think that this would not be an exception.
But item works great on its own, and it doesn't require a Salt master. It's all serverless and very scalable. So it's good on its own as a tool.
Okay.
And we do have Item Cloud does have some exciting features, like Nick added in this last week. You can store your cloud provider information inside of an Azure Key Vault. And we already have, you can store credentials inside, you can store provider information inside of LastPass. And eventually we'll have it for SSM in AWS as well. But that your credentials don't have to be locally on one machine. You can have them wherever you want.
Is that part of Takara?
No, that's just part of Item Cloud.
Cool.
Yeah, so the account backend functionality that Tyler added, right? ACCT is the name of the POP application that provides the capability, and then Tyler added on the ability to add in backends, and you have like a separate repo, right? Is that up on POP Awesome?
I don't think I added it to the Pop Awesome, but I can share it in the Zoom chat real quick.
Okay. But account backends was like a small repository of a collection of backends that Tyler put together. And as a proof of concept, I threw one in there to tie into like secret storage that GNOME uses and KDE, so some flavors of it use, so that you could like have your credentials inside that little pop-up that shows up in GNOME. I'm not sure if you're running a Linux system anywhere, but I put that as sort of like, oh, hey, now I know how to use Tyler's account backend system. And then I did the Azure Key Vault one, which is in the item Azure RM repository, but can be pulled out because it's kind of like a standalone code thing, right? Like if you install the requirements for it, you could use it with anything.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Yeah, I've seen a little bit about that. It also supports Finite Encryption. Did I get that right?
Finite Encryption is the default.
Yeah.
And it's the basis. Even if you're using like LastPass or something else, you'll need a locally encrypted Finite file with your LastPass credentials or with your Azure credentials as a launch point for downloading your other profiles from those places.
Right. That's like the Trust Bootstrap.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so not to keep banging the same drum, but if I wanted to use this within Salt, I would basically just have to do like command.run.
Pretty much.
I mean, it's I'm I'm not too proud to do that. I'm just wondering.
We would probably write a custom module for Salt that has a hub and can call those things directly. That wouldn't be too hard to do either. It would be a nightmare to try to get that merged into Salt.
Yeah, but I mean, if we had an external module that people could leverage, right? At least it's out there, even if it's not included in Salt.
Right.
Yeah, it sort of seems like if there isn't a doorway for people to use, people end up just busting holes in the wall. So even if there was, and then you have a bunch of holes in the wall. If there was even just like an example integration, that would be like a basis for people to, base theirs off of potentially, if not just straight up use.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the reasoning behind it, right? But like, if the worry is that these two tools are going to be too linked in some way, that people are going to think that item is an extension of Salt, or the next phase of Salt, and that's not the intent. That's fine, but a lot of your user base is going to be coming from Salt because that's where it's gaining the most visibility, right? So I think that there's some value in finding some way to onboard people.
Yeah, obviously I agree. I mean, like I can use Salt to integrate with Ansible and Terraform. I don't know why it wouldn't be able to integrate with item.
Itself.
Yeah.
Good point.
I just say.
Let's open up another SEP.
But I think like just having a custom module that we host with someone's private repo, that'd be fine.
What do you say, Tyler?
Just a custom module in someone's private repo that integrates the hub. Like no SEP, anyone can just get this into Salt the custom module way. That'd be easier. And then there's at least some door for it happening.
I'll open up a PR that links to that external repo inside of the documentation. Right? The docs will just point you there. If you want to do this, here you go.
We'll just shoehorn item into Salt without anyone knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, is anyone else, like, as far as things go, is anyone else interested in picking up a specific part of the item AWS just so that we don't overlap the work? And like, I'm planning on doing some copy pasting of the code I have for VPCs into DynamoDB to get that working. And
so I think it would be valuable probably to have, not only the listing of folders that I initially stubbed out, right, that represent the currently represented services inside of Salt, but maybe also like a full service listing from an API perspective for AWS. And then
so when it comes down to it, we're not going to copy code from Salt Cloud.
Right, exactly. But I think that there's state modules out there that have some logic in them that maybe could be useful to reference when you're looking at like, hey, what parts of this need to be somewhat massaged, or like what parameters are useful to be passing in. But really the API docs and Tyler's previous work is probably going to be your best bet moving forward. But like having a listing of what's out there to be integrated, maybe something like the spreadsheet that they were using for the master ports, right? Like if we had a listing of different services and who wants to grab it.
Yeah, or even I could create up a whole bunch of different issues, and if someone wants to go on GitLab and assign them to themselves, then we know who's working on it. It's in the repo.
Is your experience with GitLab that's a good way to track things?
Yeah, because when you create issues, it automatically puts it on a Kanban board that is integrated in GitLab. And we're already using it for tracking the creation of clouds in item cloud.
Okay. Yeah, put me down for, I don't know, some large part of the EC2 resources and stuff. I already have some things out there. We could go back and rework on your pattern for disk, for volumes, and for interfaces, so I could complete some of that for the bare bones, because I avoided the creates before OpenStack was in there. I don't know what else is going to be useful there, but yeah.
I will put you down for EC2.
All right, why don't we do that?
And if anyone is like at least download everything and run the tests and see if you can do that much. Even if you're not contributing, like that's a huge help. It works on my machine, but if it doesn't work on yours, I want it to. So let me know if there's anything in the instructions that aren't clear, or if there's something unexpected that didn't work, let me know. The test should run and pass for you.
So the entry point for what you're talking about is the item AWS repo?
Yeah, and the instructions are here on PyPy as well. I just shared the link in the chat. Yeah, and
it just occurred to me that I still have that that copy up on my side of item AWS, so I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. There's nothing that we need out of that anymore, right? That was just a proof of concept. All right, it's getting deleted.
Peter, do you have a GitLab account?
Yeah, we've been doing pushes and pulls back there, right? PCN?
Okay. It just didn't autofill you as an assignee, so you might have to take it.
Yeah. See, no, let's get rid of it. That totally sucks. Let's see what we got.
Or if you just want to create the issues for the things that you're working on and then assign yourself.
Well, why don't we, can we do like sort of, does it do sub issues? So if you put EC2, then I can break it out? Because GitLab decided today I should authenticate myself again.
Create an epic.
Oh yeah, there we go. That sounds right. Sounds like we're using Jira.
Fancy.
Jira. It lets me select an epic, but it doesn't let me create one. All right, I'm gonna have to work on that.
Okay,
Ask the project
GitLab.
manager.
I don't know, GitLab might just be broken. Oh no, there we go. I lied. So this is under item AWS. How do we navigate this UI? AK snippet members, CI/CD issues.
And make sure to add the cloud label to whatever you do.
But this is in the item AWS repo.
Yeah.
Boards.
Issues.
Right, under issues, there's list, boards, labels, service desk, and milestones.
Issues.
Right, I heard you the first.
Sorry.
So the issue
I see what you're talking about. Sorry.
Right, because you're saying it translates to a board, so I was thinking of looking at it from there.
Yeah, you can just click on the issues on like the top of the thing, and then it'll take you to a list of the issues. I guess list is what you want.
Okay, so we've got DynamoDB right now. So should I just make mine then, if we're there?
Yeah. And then it just shows up on the board as well.
Right. All right. So what I'll do, since I don't think I see it create an epic thing here, what I'll do is I'll start with, I'll try to get a list in here. And I'll try to one at a time on whatever I'm working on. But I'll start with add creates to EC2 volumes and and network interfaces. ENI.
And the tests, the integration tests for the states and exec modules for the VPC, those are a good, like, you can probably just copy paste those tests for pretty much, for most exec modules.
So let's
Rather
make
than
this for the first one. Creates via the client API and write tests using local stack. That sound right?
Yeah.
All right.
And for everyone
Let's see
else,
if I can
just
take it.
try and follow the instructions to get up and running and make sure the test pass for you.
So if I do labels, how do I get editing? Now that I've created the ticket, how do I get editing? I don't know if I have that feature. I can't click on any of these things.
That's annoying. I can label it real quick.
All right. And how do I assign myself to it?
Great question. I'm new to GitLab. There, I assigned you to it too.
All right. Cool. Assignee is me. Still can't like tag it or anything, but I guess that makes sense.
So Tyler, are you going to run through and create issues for all of the work that's outstanding at this point, so people can grab it, or
That might
is
take
there
a
like?
while. I think it just like we just did. If you're gonna start working on something, just put what you're working on as an issue so that no one else overlaps and does the same thing at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's why I was like, maybe we could throw this in a spreadsheet real quick, right? Because it would be as easy as creating a spreadsheet, making it shareable to the world, and then just like throwing things in a column from the directory structure or the API docs, so that people can at least see what's out there. That's my main concern, right? Is like, I don't know where to start. How do I do that? If somebody sees a list of things, they can at least say, oh, okay, well, that looks familiar. Maybe I'll do that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that sounds good.
I don't want there to be any excuses for not contributing.
Yeah, I made a spreadsheet. Let me share it with the world.
Perfect.
World editable. Cool. With great power, great responsibility. Everyone can edit it now.
Perfect. All right. Was there any other questions, comments, concerns, anything about AWS? Item AWS.
Question on the goal. Is the goal of item AWS to have basically complete coverage for AWS?
Yeah. So, at this point,
I see a confident slow nod and a vigorous fast nod.
Yeah. So it's, I tend to choose my words very, very carefully. So the immediate goal, right, is to get as many of the vital services covered as possible.
Right. With just a create, list, and destroy.
Yeah.
And then the next step would be able to update things and have the full item potent.
Yeah. So I think that it's going to be somewhat iterative, right? I think that Tyler and I are taking different tactics with how to do these things. So item AWS, Tyler's taking like a more broad and shallow approach, right? Like he's sort of like, hey, here's the things that do the major work, and I've covered a bunch of these services, and with Azure RM, I've sort of done here's the comprehensive thing that interacts with this silo of a service, right? So right now I'm starting to integrate containers. So like container registry, container instances, and Azure Kubernetes service into Azure RM. So this is going to be like the next major release coming up is going to be very containery. But when that release comes, it's going to be like literally everything that you can do to interact with those container services. But I think that there's a lot of merit in doing it the way that Tyler is going about it right now for AWS, because, you know, getting some early adoption and some people excited about this and some additional help into the behemoth that is AWS services and their APIs will probably be helpful. So if we can get some people like, oh, this is beneficial to me, but oh, it doesn't have this one thing, let me go ahead and write that real quick. I think that that would be nice.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm still getting up to speed on it, but I hope to be able to contribute in that way.
Awesome. Anything else AWS specific?
Len, if anyone's wanting to get started, but just kind of unsure about it, I'm happy to sit down with anyone for an hour or two and help you get started.
Tyler is extremely generous with his time, so make sure to take him up on that.
Please do.
Cool. So for anybody that does happen to care about Azure, like I mentioned, the work that's being done on the project right now is very container focused, and also incorporating serverless and Azure Functions. So that's probably going to be the next major new features coming out of Item Azure RM, and so that'll be pretty exciting. The other thing that's sort of a back end thing is that, we released all these modules beginning in fall of last year, and didn't have any test framework or anything, right? Because it was more like a, hey, POC, let's get it out the door. So additionally, inside of, I don't know, from a couple of weeks ago through, probably the next several weeks, is going back and trying to get test coverage for all of the stuff that's out there and existing, which is not a trivial amount of code. So that's a fairly large undertaking. If anybody is interested in Azure, surely take the help on that too. But I know that I'm working at a disadvantage here with market share. So those are the new and exciting things coming up in the future for Azure. And then I haven't put out any blog posts on like some of the recent updates. I think the last one I did was like version 2.2, and now we're at 2.4. Nothing crazy in those updates, but I did mention the Key Vault secret backend, which was new in version 2.4, I think. And so that's a pretty cool thing to be able to unlock secrets from a key vault prior to doing things in the cloud, which I think would be an interesting thing for people that have to juggle multiple different subscriptions inside of Azure, or potentially multi-cloud, right? So like you could put your AWS credentials inside of Azure Key Vault and pull them down, and then use Item AWS in order to deploy your AWS objects. So I think that there's some pretty cool combinations that could be had there with the account backends, and being able to store your secrets someplace that is nice and safe, but also accessible. I think the only other thing that I had was recently inside of Slack, there have been a lot of people reaching out for help on Salt Cloud that has really been like documentation focused. So I think it's been OpenStack and VMware that I've been involved with recently that people have been like, hey, you know, I'm trying to do this thing, it doesn't quite work. What the heck's going on? And I've had to look at the code in order to figure it out. And then I'm opening up issues against the documentation and then putting in PRs to get that modified. So I guess if anybody is using Salt Cloud and knows of any documentation deficiencies, put in some issues for it, and let's see if we can get some of this stuff fixed up, because there are still people out there using Salt Cloud that are running into these types of problems. So keep your eyes peeled.
And I'd be happy to help out with that as well. We're using Salt Cloud at my company.
Awesome. Yeah, you know, it was like the issue with OpenStack, I think, was really related to like typing of the different parameters. So like people weren't really sure how to pass in certain parameters. And then with VMware, there are parameters that's looking for inside of the provider configuration that are not documented anywhere. And so I'm sure that those two providers are not the only ones out there that are like that. So if you're using you know, the AWS provider or potentially the Azure provider or any of the other ones, you know, there's probably documentation deficiencies. So if you see anything, you know, it takes a second to at least raise the issue, throw it into Slack, and then, you know, if it's documentation only, I don't have access to OpenStack or VMware, but I've been putting PRs against the documentation just by like looking at the documentation. So if you see a deficiency, throw an issue out there and let somebody know about it. You might get some help on actually doing the PR. Cool. Well, does anybody have anything else?
Nothing for me.
I'm looking at the Zoom group chat. If anybody wants to throw anything in there, they're just too shy to say it out loud. I swear I won't bite. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and call it then. I think it's a pretty good meeting. You know, I got to definitely see a lot of cool stuff coming out of Item AWS. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns in the meantime, before our next meeting in a month, throw something out on Slack.
Cool. Thanks very much.
All right. See you
Thanks,
guys.
everyone. Thanks for all the work, Taylor. Later.